What's going on, everybody? So, today's show, we've got some stuff to get into, but first and foremost, Ryan Garcia is back for a world title, but the undercard he is on might actually steal the show. Leigh Wood and Josh Warrington are also returning to the ring. They're going to be going to war in a rematch where the loser's career might just be over. And Claressa Shields is bringing her return back to the ring as well by bringing her undisputed gold back to Detroit. Also, Golden Boy just dragged Vergil Ortiz to court over a $20 million offer. It is a massive week in the sport. Let's get right into it. Let's get it. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the SchuZ Show. I'm your guys' host, Zach Schumaker. We have an absolutely loaded show today. I'll be previewing one of the biggest weekends of the year, which is going to be featuring fights all the way up in the UK, Vegas, and Detroit. But before we look ahead to Ryan Garcia and Leigh Wood and Claressa Shields, we need to clean up the action that just happened this past weekend. So let's get into a recap of all the stuff that went down in the boxing world this past weekend. I'm going to kick it off now with the bantamweights because there's been a couple different situations going down in Japan. Nishida, he got back into the ring and he won an absolute war. If you didn't check that fight out, it was on Sunday morning against Brian Mercado via technical decision. He was stopped in the 7th round due to a bad cut on Nishida. Nishida is now going to be the mandatory challenger for Naoya Inoue's IBF belt. On top of that, the WBO bantamweight, Christian Medina, he successfully defended his WBO belt while he was fighting to a unanimous decision win over Adrian Curiel. And then on top of that, Zuffa Boxing also made their return as F.A. Ajagba took care of business with a 4th round KO of Charles Martin. Umar had a KO of the year with a 2nd round knockout and much more to get into. But I want to kick it off real quickly with this one right here. And we're going to kick the show off primarily going into a Zuffa Boxing discussion, as there was a lot of stuff with Zuffa Boxing. And last week, we had a lot to break down on Zuffa Boxing. Obviously, with the show returning, I didn't get to cover in depth the first 2 cards. I will be honest, once again, I liked what I saw from Zuffa Boxing. Sunday Night Boxing, I'm well aware a lot of people have the skepticism, is Sunday night the right night for boxing? I enjoyed it. And as I've said in the last show, and I've always had this approach, I don't know if Dana White will continue Zuffa Boxing on Sundays every single year or going forward. I don't know what his plan is. What I do know is that Zuffa Boxing on Sunday is not the end-all be-all. I, quite frankly, did enjoy it. There's nothing else to really watch. I enjoyed it. And now I know football season, that might be a different story. But I legitimately did enjoy seeing what happened with Zuffa Boxing. I thought we had multiple fights that went and were very entertaining. And we saw a KO of the year contender with the co-main event. Then the main event, I'm just going to talk about F.A. Ajagba real quickly. This is a man who I thought looked very, very good. I think he probably looked, I'd say he probably looked the best he's looked in a couple of years. That way, and I get it, it was not a massive fight against a great opponent, but he looked very, very strong. And so if I were F.A. Ajagba, I think he just set himself up for a massive fight in the future now. Now, I'm not sure what that could entail, but I think he set himself up for a great fight. That being said, he made a quote after the fight that I do want to touch up on. He talks about something along the lines, I don't have the direct quote on me, but he said something along the lines of, well, now people can't keep ducking me. I have my big performance, yada, yada, yada. Here's what I'm going to be shocked by. There's a fight going down very soon, which features Richard Torres Jr., who took the fight against Frank Sanchez. That is going to be for a world title eliminator. F.A. Ajagba was in prime position for that fight right there. He turned that down. And so my main point I'm trying to make here is that when boxers want to come out and play the whole nobody wants to fight me, the ducking me excuse, it's kind of bogus. And so if you're F.A. Ajagba, I appreciate the performance you gave us on Zuffa Boxing on Sunday night. But just being quite frankly honest, that was not a very good showing in terms of how he approached the press conference and wanted to go out there and claim that nobody wants to fight him. You had the opportunity to fight, and we'll go on from there. As well as for Zuffa Boxing, though, they have another big signing. Mark Maxeo. Yes, the former champion. He is officially the latest name to sign with Dana White, Zuffa Boxing, which was a massive pickup for Zuffa Boxing. If you were not familiar with that, yes, he's there. Now, let me give a little bit of details here. You guys realize who he could possibly be going out there to fight? Rayo. That seems to be the fight that they're going to be targeting for him to go out there and fight. Now, when you look at weight classes, I'm well aware that a lot of people are saying, well, for Mark, this is a guy that's obviously can fight at 130, 135. For Rayo, he was moved up to 140. But remember, the weight classes are different in Zuffa Boxing. Odds are these two guys are going to be pinned against each other, and we could see that fight in the very near future. But this is what was shocking to me. I had Mark on the show, I want to say it was about probably October time, and he made a claim on the show that picked up a lot of publicity. He mentioned the fact that, hey, I am now going to be fighting for a world championship in my next fight. And he was talking with the WBC route. That is what the WBC told him. But as we saw come to fruition, that never did happen. So I feel like this is very interesting because he was very tied in with the WBC. And with all the WBC drama going on, he now completely abandons the WBC plan and now is with Zuffa Boxing. Something to keep an eye on right there. In the early hours of this past morning, though, more Japanese boxing happened, and Jin Sasaki, remember the man that got knocked out by Brian Norman Jr.? Yes, he bounced back from his loss to Brian Norman with a huge second-round KO win in Tokyo. I want to go in depth on this one real quickly here. Actually, not in depth, but I do want to discuss it. If you did not watch Jin Sasaki fight, you missed out. This is a very entertaining man. When you talk about Jin Sasaki, this man knows how to go to war. He has got so much power. However, he has one big flaw and is a very bad flaw. His defense is atrocious. And if you watch that fight, he was getting hit a lot, albeit in 2 rounds, but he was getting hit a lot. Now, what Jin Sasaki did do in that fight, which was impressive, was he got him out of there with a massive KO. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out on my X. I posted it on there. This was a great performance by Jin Sasaki. I thought he looked solid. I think he's going to be back in the picture now, but still, he's got to work on that defense if he wants to be competitive with any of the champions. And 147 is a very bad weight class, but if he wants to ever get a shot at a guy like Brian Norman, obviously the Devin Haney's, Ryan Garcia, any of those guys at 147, he will have to improve that defense to be successful. End of the story. Now, let's get into what a lot of people are probably tuning into the show to hear, which is some big fights. So let's head over to Las Vegas, the Ring, high stakes card, which is going down on Saturday night on DAZN pay-per-view. It is a stacked card from top to bottom. 3 world title fights will be on the line. I want to make a very clear point, and I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about this as well. When I look at this card that I'm about ready to preview for you guys, is it just me, or am I more excited for the undercard than I am for the main event? And I get it. I'm not trying to bash the main event at all. I think it will be a fine fight. I mean, I'm going to, of course, watch it. I'm excited for it. But I'm a little bit confused about the main event. I'll give you guys my thoughts as to why in a moment here. But it is just a stacked undercard. You're talking about multiple world title fights. You're talking about some high names that I'm at least very excited to go out there and watch. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What is the fight you're most excited for this week? And let me know in the chat. I'll be answering all those chat questions here as we go throughout the duration of the show. Also, let me know your thoughts. Who do you have winning this fight this weekend between Ryan Garcia, Mario Barrios, as well as the rematch going down in the UK between Leigh Wood and Josh Warrington? Let's go to the very first card, though, on the undercard. Beck, he's going to be returning against Sina Agbeko. This is the Beck the Bully's return, and it's looking to make a violent statement. He brings a relentless, heavy-handed Uzbek pressure and a vicious body attack, while Agbeko is a rugged veteran who has been there with the top guys. He's fought David Morrell, but he tends to get overwhelmed by high-output power punchers. Well, what do you think that means then? Well, for my prediction in this fight, I think Beck's going to come out here and win. Beck's last fight was very impressive against Darius Fulgham. I think both those guys will be guys that's going to be in the picture for a long time at 168. Beck obviously emerged victorious, though, and I thought he looked phenomenal. In this fight, this one should be an easy win for Beck. And if he wins this fight, he'll be in position to fight for a world championship in the very near future. And when you talk about this man, Beck, I think he's going to be able to walk him down. I think he's going to target the liver. He's going to go look for the body. And I think he's going to get a mid-round stoppage to open up the pay-per-view card with a bang. I don't see this fight being ultra competitive. Now, let me be clear. This is boxing. Anything can happen. But I think Beck is a very solid fighter. Might I even add, I think he's very underrated. That being said, I just don't think that Becco is going to be able to do much against him. I think this is going to be a good performance from Beck, and we'll see him really put himself in position to fight and have a big fight in the next few months at probably mid 2026. Let's get to the fight of at least one of the fights I'm most excited for. Frank Martin returning against Nahir Albright. Super lightweight fight going down, and the Ghost is back. Now, he took a long time off between his fight with Tank Davis and returned to his ring when he fought just a little bit ago. Now he's right back in the ring. This is what I want to see from Frank Martin. And I've been very clear about this. I think Frank Martin is very talented. Listen, we go back to that Tank Davis fight. He looked good. Now, mind you, Frank Martin is not on Tank Davis's level. We all knew that. This was a fight where Tank Davis pulled up a guy who I believe at the time was ranked 7 or 8. I don't quote me on that, something along there. But Frank Martin surprised me. I thought he had very good moments in that fight against Tank Davis. And yes, of course, he got knocked out badly by Tank Davis. I didn't like the fact that Frank Martin took so much time outside of the ring, but he returned, looked phenomenal, and now he fights in here Albright. This is a man who obviously had the whole, Davis brother fiasco go down when he upset the Davis brothers. And this is a man who I think is a very underrated, solid fighter. Now, don't get it twisted. I have Frank Martin winning this fight. But after his lightweight run, he's now at 140, as I mentioned earlier. He has elite speed, incredible footwork. He's got a very top-tier ring IQ, which, like I said a little bit ago, you saw those flashes in the Tank Davis fight. Well, Albright, he's a tough, durable. He comes to fight, but he's not the most fast-twitch athlete. He lacks a lot of explosiveness to match Martin in the center of the ring, and that is why I think this will be a showcase fight for Frank Martin. When I look at guys in boxing who I think could make a big jump this year, what do I mean by that to explain? I'm saying a guy who's not currently a legitimate top name. Now, Frank Martin has a great following, has a great fan base, but I'm saying when you talk about those type of guys, that top tier of world champions, legitimate, superstars, if you will, in boxing, Frank Martin has that potential, I feel like. He just needs to execute on that. And so when I say this is a man who I think could make one of those big, big jumps in 2026, that goes to Frank Martin. I feel like with a big performance against Nahir Albright, he would be in position to fight for world championship. Whether that be the long anticipated Richardson Hitchins fight, that be a showdown with Gary Antuanne Russell, maybe a Shakur Stevenson type fight. I'm just throwing names out there, but Frank Martin has the name and branding already with a good performance against Nahir Albright. And I'm just talking about a statement. I would be shocked he doesn't get a world championship fight. And I think that you'd look at Frank Martin, this is a guy who has the capabilities of beating some of those names. Not saying he's the favorite in any of them, but he has a chance to. And so when I look at guys this year that I feel like could make a big jump in terms of where they're viewed by the public in boxing, I think that slot belongs to, at least one of those slots, to Frank Martin. So I do expect him to win this fight. I think this is going to be a fun fight. I think we're going to see a masterclass by Frank Martin with him winning by a wide unanimous decision at the bare minimum. I would actually, I would say if I were to put money on it, I think it could go unanimous decision. Nahir Albright is a tough fighter, but Frank Martin has power. We saw it just when his last fight. We've seen it throughout his career. I could see a knockout happening, but if I were to give my decision, I would go with the unanimous decision in favor of Frank Martin. Speaking of other guys at 140, this is the fight that I might just be the most excited for in terms of all the big fights going down in this card. Gary Antuanne Russell, Andy Hiraoka. This is for the WBA Super Lightweight World Championship. Now, this fight has a lot of history. What do I mean by that? When you talk about this fight, it was supposed to happen a long time ago. But fight cancellations, postponements, so on and so forth, has pushed this fight all the way up until this weekend in February. Which it is what it is. We still get the fight. But this is going to be an incredible fight. We have not seen Gary Antuanne Russell in the ring since he became world championship. Since he became a world champion and had an absolute masterclass performance. And I've been honest with you guys. I think Gary Antuanne Russell is one of the most underrated fighters in all boxing. You talk about guys who have the full package, has some power, incredibly high ring IQ, skill set, defense. He's got the whole package. Yet we have not seen this man be active. That's the only thing holding Gary Antuanne Russell back right now. And so when we talk about guys, I'm ecstatic to see this man back in the ring because I feel like we're watching a true technician, a masterclass type performance again we could see from him. This is one of the best guys in boxing when you talk about those pure skill sets. And so I'm ecstatic to see this man back in the ring. He's going to be returning against Andy Hiraoka, who also is not very active. For Antuanne Russell, he's absolute buzzsaw. He brings a lot to the ring. Immense pressure, finishing instincts. Hiraoka, he's a much more slick, undefeated southpaw from Japan, but he has gone through a massive logistical nightmare this past weekend. Here's the situation if you're not familiar with what happened to Andy Hiraoka. This man was supposed to arrive in Las Vegas from Japan a long time ago, about a week or so ago. He had visa issues, meaning he was not able to get to Las Vegas until 3 days before the bout, just about yesterday. On top of that, remember, there's a big time difference, 17-hour time difference between Las Vegas and Japan, meaning to make for a world title fight, do the weight cut, traveling across the planet, last minute. These are some massive issues. And I will always say this. For a lot of fighters, you're only as good as your team is. And I don't know the problems. I don't know the logistical errors. I don't know exactly everything that went down for this man, but they failed him. And I'm talking, this is way before he even steps foot in the ring on fight night. If you are his team, you should have had this figured out. Like, this is a serious problem. You are fighting a man in Antuanne Russell, whom I just talked about, I believe is one of the most underrated fighters in the entire world. He already is the favorite. Andy Hiraoka is an incredible fighter as well, though, but you're putting this man at a disadvantage. You're going to Antuanne Russell's home country. You knew that from the beginning. But on top of that, you're going to be going in there you're going to be obviously going through a lot of jet lag. You're coming in traveling, a massive travel, days before the fight. You're going to go through a weight cut. You have all these problems just going to add on to, which should have not ever been a situation they has to deal with. So when you talk about being at a disadvantage, this man is legitimately at a disadvantage. And so if you are his team, this is a problem. And I've always said this. We need to give a lot more pressure onto fighters' teams and the camps, because this situation right here is unacceptable. You failed your fighter. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. You should have had this figured out. The visa, the passport, all those problems should have been figured out a long time ago. So they put him at a massive disadvantage. I already was going to say, you know what, Antuanne Russell is going to go out there and win this fight, but you now add in the jet lag. You add in all the situations. Antuanne Russell is going to be the massive favorite in this fight. I think we're going to see a violent stoppage in the first half of this fight. Well, like I said, yes, this is a good fight. Don't get twisted. I've been excited for Antuanne Russell and Andy Hiraoka for a long time. But you add in the fact that I said, I think Gary's a much better fighter to begin with, and all the problems going on with Andy Hiraoka, you set the guy up for failure. And so I do expect Antuanne Russell to go out there, make a massive statement Saturday night, and likely set himself up for a big showdown. I don't know who that fight would be against. If that could be against a guy in the undercard, like a Frank Martin, or a guy like Richardson Hitchins, or Oscar Duarte, if Oscar Duarte pulls that upset off. Maybe Shakur Stevenson. I don't know who it would be, but with a big performance from Antuanne Russell, he would put himself in a huge position for a big fight later on this year. Hopefully stays active. Let's transition to another fight going down at the 140 weight class, which is Richardson Hitchins fighting Oscar Duarte, the IBF super lightweight title on the line. This is a classic matchup of styles. Hitchins is one of the most pure technical boxers in all of sport. He wants to keep this in the outside and piece Duarte up behind the jab. Duarte obviously is a pressure cooker. He is a heavy hand, needs to turn it into a phone booth brawl. That's the way he goes about it. That being said, we see this type of fights very often in boxing. We see the guy with the Mexican type style, the guy that wants to go out there and try to get the kill, try to get the knockout, pressure fighter, and we see the guy with much more skill in Hitchins. How does that typically go and work out? Not always, but majority of the time, the technical fighter comes out victorious, especially when you're talking about high-level technicians and high-level pressure fighters. I like Oscar Duarte. I thought he was a very good fighter. I think he looked very good against Kenneth Sims in his last fight out. And for Richardson Hitchins, I don't feel like I can make a bold claim on this man yet. And here's what I say. I'm not trying to diss the man at all. I think he's a very good fighter. I just don't know if I've seen enough yet, where I don't know if this man is that guy or if he's more so just of a very good contender world champion type of guy. A guy that's probably in the top 5 of a weight class at a certain point in time. I think he's very, very solid. I just have not seen enough. Fighting George Kambosos, obviously good performance, but how much value do you really take in that? Oscar Duarte is going to be a very, very difficult opponent for this man. He is a guy that's going to have his moments. He's going to go out there and have some fights and rounds that he's going to win. I would be shocked if Hitchins wins by KO in this fight, but If Duarte can find a way to trap Hitchins in the corner, get him to go against the ropes, whatever it might be, Hitchins, he could be in trouble, but I don't think that's how the fight will go. I think Hitchins' footwork, his distance management, they're elite. I think he's going to take the IBF belt, remain the champion by unanimous decision. That's just the way I see this fight going down. Let me know in the comments, though. Who do you guys have winning this fight? Do you think Duarte can pull it off? Do you see Hitchins remaining world champion? How do you see this fight going down? As I said, I have Hitchins winning it by unanimous decision. I don't see him getting the knockout. Duarte has a shot to win, but if he wins this fight, it most likely will have to come by knockout. I just don't see him winning more rounds than Hitchins, and so therefore I think Hitchins will emerge victorious in this fight. All right. I said a little bit ago that the main event's interesting for myself. I'm going to give you guys the full preview and breakdown here in a moment, but here's what I want to say in regards to the main event. I don't know what to say about it, to be honest, in regards to how excited I am. I'm honestly more excited for the undercard than I am for the main event. I don't know if you feel the same way or not. You can let me know in the chat, but the reason I say that is I just don't know what to expect. Listen, when it comes to Mario Barrios, this is a guy who I'm critical of. I'm not a big Mario Barrios fan. I like the way he typically, he didn't do it against Manny Pacquiao, but typically he goes to war. I always appreciate that about him. That being said, when you talk about pure skill and ability inside the ring, Mario Barrios has been someone I've deemed one of, if not the worst world champion in boxing. I'm just not very high on the guy. At the same time, what are we going to see from Ryan Garcia? If we're talking the best potential version of each other, Ryan Garcia should win this fight. He should win the fight. But it's Ryan Garcia. What Ryan Garcia will we see on Saturday night? Let's look at the past fights he's had. In his last fight, it was an absolute train wreck. I still don't know what the heck happened against Rolly Romero. That was such an easy setup fight for Ryan Garcia that somehow he blew. I still don't know how he did that. There's no reason he ever should have lost to Rolly Romero, but not only did he lose, he got embarrassed by Rolly Romero. So I don't know what happened in that fight. If that Ryan Garcia shows up, he's going to lose against Mario Barrios. And then you add it to a step further, you have the Devin Haney fight. Obviously, he looked phenomenal. But hopefully that Ryan Garcia is not going to be the Ryan Garcia in the ring on Saturday night because he was on PEDs. So we don't know what that Ryan Garcia is, obviously a mythical type fighter in that aspect. So we don't know what we could see from Ryan Garcia. And so it's very confusing in terms of how we're going to view this man. And that's why I say for this fight, I'm not going to give you guys a firm prediction. When I look at this fight, it could go so many different ways. Mario Barrios could win this fight if Ryan Garcia is gun shy again. If Ryan Garcia goes out there, does not want to throw down a fight, he doesn't want to let loose, he doesn't want to do anything, he just runs around the ring like he did against Rolly Romero a year ago, then Mario Barrios will somehow remain world champion once again. He shouldn't be. I think Manny Pacquiao beat Barrios in his last fight, but Ryan Garcia would not win that fight. Now, if Ryan Garcia turns the clock back a little bit and we see this man go out there and throw down, try to go for the knockout, be the Ryan Garcia that started to rise his name up, was a part of the Four Kings once upon a time, then guess what? Ryan Garcia should win this fight Saturday night. But as I said, it's a big skeptical issue. We don't know who's going to emerge with the WBC welterweight title. Obviously, Barrios, he is 29-2-2. 18 KOs. He is a warrior. Well, Ryan Garcia, he has 2 losses on his resume with 24 wins. And this matchup has been building. I don't think this fight, let's be honest, and I said this before, does Ryan Garcia even deserve this fight? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I was critical of it when he got it, but at the same time, like I always will say, it is a business. This fight sells because Ryan Garcia's name is on the card. It is what it is. 147 sucks. Not a lot of big names to make, so Ryan Garcia has his chance. He has one of the quickest hands in all boxing. He has his signature left hook, which I will say is part of my judgmental problem about him. He is a one-trick pony in a large extent. That left hook, when it connects, is a beautiful thing of art. But does he throw it? Does he actually try to go engage and be able to land that shot? That's to be determined. We didn't see that against Rolly Romero at all. That being said, with him being at 147, he did not look good in his debut last year. He's now fighting a naturally bigger, battle-tested champion in Barrios. He has an iron chin. He knows how to weather a storm. He knows how to go to war, and that's going to be a massive factor. So we'll see what happens here. I would say Ryan Garcia is the favorite to win the fight. Now, like I said, this is not something where I'm going to say a firm prediction on. So if I get this wrong, I don't really care. Ryan Garcia should win this fight. But I don't know what Ryan Garcia we will see in the ring on Saturday. If it's anything similar to the version of Ryan Garcia that we saw a little less than a year ago at Times Square against Raul Romero, he will lose this fight. But if Ryan Garcia goes and puts the pressure on Mario Barrios and tries to go for the knockout, then Ryan Garcia should win this fight. He has more skill set. He has a more talented, God-gifted ability than Mario Barrios. But you know what Mario Barrios will bring? It's going to be tough to knock the guy out. On top of that, this man is going to go to war the entire duration of the fight. Tough chin, so we will see what happens. But that's what's going to happen. On top of that, though, there is a lot at stake for this fight. Here's what I want to diverge into real quickly. There's already reports that Henry Garcia, obviously Ryan Garcia's father, and Shakur Stevenson have already been talking about a fight at 140 if Ryan Garcia pulls off the win. Now, here's why I'm interested in this comment in this report that came out a couple of days ago. If you're Ryan Garcia and you are a businessman, I get it. That is why you literally have this fight. But if you're Ryan Garcia, I don't think it's wise to even be looking past Mario Barrios to any extent. Last time out, that fight was a tune-up fight for both you and Devin Haney to get the rematch on the books, and you blew it. So, of course, would that sell well, a Ryan Garcia-Shakur Stevenson fight? Obviously. But I just hope Ryan Garcia is not looking too far past Mario Barrios because it did not work out last time. So, my final prediction for this fight is this. I think Garcia will catch Barrios at least once or twice. I think we will see... Hopefully, we'll see the Ryan Garcia at least as tries to go out there and win the fight. I think his speed will be overwhelming. I think Barrios will take the power in a little bit. I think it will go to decision, but I still do expect Ryan Garcia to come out and win by unanimous decision. But as I said, I'm not going to sit up here and say that I think this fight will go one way or another. I don't know what's going to happen. This is just a random prediction. And I want to say I'm more excited for the undercard than I am for the main event. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section. And let me know, see what you guys think. Who do you have winning this weekend? Ryan Garcia, Mario Barrios. Who do you have going down in Las Vegas? Now, before that fight goes down in Las Vegas, though, we do have a fight going down, which will be an absolute bloodbath type fight going down in Nottingham, UK. That is a strictly all about survival fight. Now, what do I mean by this? It's the rematch. Leigh Wood going down against none other than Josh Warrington. For Leigh Wood, he is 28-4, 17 KOs on his record. Josh Warrington, he is 32-4-1. This fight, as I said, has a lot of history in it. It is billed as the last man standing. Warrington was boxing beautifully in the first fight before Wood pulled off a shocking 7th round stoppage. For Warrington, he wants his revenge. Wood wants to prove that it was not a fluke. The loser here is looking at the end of the road. Odds are quite high that the loser in this fight will be retiring after it. Warrington, I believe, will outbox Wood for the first half of the fight once again, but here's the big question. Can Warrington's chin hold up for the 12 rounds this time around? If you were to ask me now, I think Warrington does pull this off. I think he wins by points. I think he sticks to being a disciplined defensive output down the stretch, and I think that fight does end up leading to a victory, meaning the series will go to 1-1, possibly heading up for a trilogy in the future. Let's head over to the other big fight going down this weekend, which is Claressa Shields returning against Cruz in their rematch. Now, this fight goes down on Sunday night, which means we get 2 days of big-time boxing action going down this weekend. The undisputed crown is on the line when Claressa Shields comes home to Detroit. Claressa Shields, obviously undefeated, 17-0. Many do deem, including myself, to be the best woman in women's boxing. Katie Taylor, respectfully, is right there as well. Call them 1A, 1B. You can put them whatever order you would so desire. She's going to go down against the opponent who is 10-2 with 2 KOs in her career. This is for the undisputed heavyweight world championship. Now listen, they fought their pro debuts a decade ago, fighting in front of a sold-out Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. Listen, this fight's not going to be competitive. I like Claressa Shields. As I just said, she's the best woman in women's boxing. Obviously, sure, you can throw it out there and say she's the second best. I don't care. Her and Katie Taylor. I think the only question is does Shields get the knockout? That's it. She's going to be in the running for it. Obviously, she doesn't get them that often. But if you are talking about this fight this weekend, that's the only question. Claressa Shields will win this fight. It's not going to be competitive. Claressa Shields leaps and bounds better than every single fighter at the heavyweight division. I think better than everybody she could possibly fight. This is probably going to go to decision. Claressa Shields will win the fight, though. Now, going on besides just that, though, there is a lot of the fights I'm just going to quickly run down because, as I said, we previewed the entire card going down in Las Vegas. Then we're going to head over to the UK fight. Josh Warrington obviously taking on Leigh Wood. On that undercard, you do have some other big fights I do want to get down and discuss. Some of those fights do include, where'd it go? Here we go. Ishmael Davis versus Bilal Fawaz. Now, quick little promotional aspect. I have interviewed both those guys in the past few months because I want to check the stories out of Ishmael Davis, Bilal Fawaz. Go check them out. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. This fight right here is probably one of the most entertaining and interesting British fights we've seen in a long time. If you're not familiar with these two guys, if you're an American tuning into this show, these two guys go to war. Ishmael Davis has fought top-level opponents for a long time. He became the British champion a few months ago in an incredible performance. His story is remarkable, but then Bilal Fawaz, he might even have a better story. This is a man who has gone through hell and back to get to where he's at today. And that interview I had with him is one of the most inspirational stories I think I've ever had on the show. So I would go check out both those interviews if I were you to get to know these guys better. That's going to be the co-main event. Sandy Ryan, she's returning to the ring, as is Leo Tang and others on that card as well. So lots of big fights going down this weekend that you're not going to want to miss. But that leads me to a massive topic I want to get into. It is about Vergil Ortiz Jr. and Jaron Boots Ennis. So what I'm going to do right now is I want to inform everybody on the situation at hand. Because listen, we've gotten into a massive legal battle right now. And there's a lot of people throwing blame at all different types of people right now. I know I put a poll out there a few days ago on my channel to kind of hear what your guys' thoughts are. And pretty much almost everybody said that the people at fault is Golden Boy here, which I think is in large part Golden Boy. But I want to give everybody the factual legal information as to what exactly is happening, if there's a chance we see this fight, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read down all the details I've gathered. And I put a lot of research into this so I can give you guys everything you guys could possibly know about the situation, where it stands right now, and then I'll let you guys know my thoughts on the situation. So here's the details. So we will be moving now from the ring to the courtyard. The biggest fight, I believe, in American boxing right now that is possibly going to happen isn't happening right now. It's actually going to be tied up in the courtroom. So tomorrow morning, we will have a lot more details. But here's the timeline for the Vergil Ortiz and Boots Ennis fight. Now, Vergil Ortiz Jr. was offered a massive deal by Matchroom Boxing, guaranteeing him between $12 million and $20 million for an April 18th showdown against Jaron Boots Ennis. Great. However, Golden Boy Promotions sent Matchroom a cease and desist back on January 16th. The court order on February 11th said this: Golden Boy heard Matchroom was still planning the fight. Golden Boy immediately went to a Nevada federal court, and Judge Christina Silva granted an emergency temporary restraining order, TRO is what it's legally known as, legally blocking Ortiz from signing any third-party contract for the Ennis bout. The stakes for tomorrow morning. Well, tomorrow morning on February 20th at 10 a.m. in Las Vegas, there is going to be an emergency hearing. The judge at that point in time will determine if Matchroom can legally stage Ennis versus Ortiz without Golden Boy's involvement, or if Golden Boy officially freezes the fight. In regards to what the details of his actual lawsuit are, here it is. Golden Boy will be raising the key distinction between termination of a relationship and termination of a contract in his motion, but Ortiz continues to ignore the distinction in the actual language of Section 10G, by incorrectly insisting that he may terminate the promotional agreement simply because the most recent long-term contract between DAZN and Golden Boy has expired. Ortiz continues to conflate the terms relationship and contract because he knows that Golden Boy's relationship with DAZN has not terminated, and thus he has no grounds for termination of the promotional agreement under Section 10G. Furthermore, Golden Boy contends that the current and ongoing talks with DAZN and its two agreed upon one-off fight dates constitutes a continued distribution relationship. The fallout callouts. With Ortiz tied up, Jermell Charlo immediately called out for the Boots Ennis offer. Meanwhile, the idea of this mega tournament is floating that possibly the winner of Xander Zayas versus Josh Kelly is fighting the winner of Boots versus Ortiz. So those things are all in store. All right. So let me break this down for you guys. Essentially, what's happened at this point in time is that we've got a situation. Matchroom and Vergil Ortiz's team essentially went behind the back of Golden Boy to try to negotiate this fight. What this means is that Golden Boy and Oscar De La Hoya was not necessarily involved in the workings of this agreement for what was going to be an April 18th fight. Which for us boxing fans, of course, we all will come together and say, yeah, that would have been phenomenal. We all would have loved to have seen this fight go down, and who cares about the legal problems? Here's the situation. When you get to the legal battles, you can't do that. Vergil Ortiz Jr. was essentially trying to terminate his deal with Golden Boy and Oscar De La Hoya based upon the grounds that, hypothetically, a fight would not be made or a contract with them would not be made because the DAZN sponsorship is no longer in place. So if you're not familiar with the DAZN TV deal, Golden Boy's deal has expired with DAZN, but DAZN and Golden Boy are still negotiating a contract. When you look at the legal terms, that 10G part I kept pointing out right there, what that is essentially saying is that you can only say that the relationship between them has been pulled apart when they're done negotiating. When they are negotiating, you're going to be in a very tough predicament as to how you can legally overcome this. So that's the situation that Vergil Ortiz and his team are currently in. There's really no way around it. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., we will hear the official ruling as to whether or not this fight can proceed, what the exact actions will be taking place, so on and so forth. So we'll have more details as of tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. That being said, here's the odds. The odds are quite high that we're going to receive news that boxing fans don't want to hear. Because of the fact that, yes, give props to Eddie Hearn and Matchroom for giving Vergil Ortiz a massive contract to try to make this fight happen, you can't necessarily do that. The way they went around business is not something that you can justify. And it sucks. And as I will always go back and point out about boxing, this is the problem with boxing. And I get it. Some people right now are probably going to give me some slack for what I'm going to say. When we look at boxing, it is a disorganized, chaotic scene. It is unlike any sport in the entire world because there's no structure involved. And so for a lot of people out there, they will go out there and say that this whole Zuffa Boxing thing and Turkey Al Sheikh thing, oh, it's so bad for boxing, is going to destroy it. This is my point that I will oftentimes make. Maybe that's what boxing needs. Because if that were to be in place, this whole fiasco with all these legal situations going down right now would not happen. Here's why. When you have, for example, let's stick with combat sports, a UFC, for example, you have Dana White in charge of the UFC. Everything is already tied up within the UFC branch. These guys are all signed to the same contracts, so there's not going to be conflicting promotional issues in that regard. You just don't have that. If you're talking NBA, this would be something as if NBA teams were moving in separate directions, opposed from Adam Silver in the NBA. Same thing with NFL teams and Roger Goodell. The thing is that everybody is under one branch. In boxing, you don't have that. In boxing, you have branches spread throughout all over the place. And that is why we've gotten to a situation where a fight like Jaron Boots Ennis versus Vergil Ortiz, which is one of the biggest fights to make in boxing, isn't getting made. The two fighters want to make the fight happen. And let me diverge real quickly onto this subject. I don't want anybody giving any flack towards Vergil Ortiz Jr. or Jaron Boots Ennis. It is clear by all the information that we have gathered now that Jaron Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz Jr., they want to make this fight happen. And so to that, I will say hats off to both these guys. Both these young, rising superstars. Two guys that are top 10 level fighters in all the world. They want to make this fight happen in their prime. And I give all hats off to these two dudes. Because not a lot of boxers are willing to do this. These two guys are going through court, trying to do whatever it can take possible to make this fight happen. And I applaud both those men for doing so. They are doing what the fans want them to do. So this has nothing to do with Jaron Boots Ennis or Vergil Ortiz. Make this very clear. I don't want anybody trying to act like either one of these two guys are ducking. Both Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz want the fight to be made. Both these two guys are excellent fighters that are doing whatever they can to make the fight happen. This has nothing to do with the fighters. This has everything to do with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom and Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy. On Eddie Hearn's part, he wants to make the fight happen. Hats off to him. His problem is that he went about doing so in a way that's not really legal, which is not always okay? For Golden Boy, listen, I don't know where to take this stance. From a legal standpoint, Oscar De La Hoya is not in the wrong. From a legal standpoint, what Eddie Hearn's doing is not legal, which is why his odds are quite high. He's going to lose tomorrow in court. That being said, here's the problem I have. This fight should never have gone to this point. If Oscar De La Hoya either trusted more so in Vergil Ortiz or just wanted to make big fights happen, this fight would have been made already. It would have. The reason we're in this legal battle is obviously because Oscar De La Hoya never wanted to make Vergil Ortiz with Boots Ennis happen. That was the position that he wanted to take. For one reason or another, whether he is scared to have Vergil Ortiz lose, whether it's a financial reason, I don't know his reasoning. But whatever it is, Oscar De La Hoya is the man to blame for why this fight's not happening. I don't blame him for taking the legal action now because obviously Eddie Hearn went and did an illegal working in a certain sense, which is why, like I said, they're going to lose in court tomorrow. But for Oscar De La Hoya, no, this man is not just going to skate by clean. For whatever reason, he put up a massive fight to try blocking this fight from happening. And you can't be doing that. If you're Oscar De La Hoya, your job is to put your fighters in the best position possible to make big fights happen. What is a bigger fight that Vergil Ortiz could realistically make right now than Jaron Boots Ennis? The answer is that there is not one. So Oscar De La Hoya failed as fighter to begin with. And then we take it a step further, and obviously now he's going to go to legal wars. So here's my advice to people, and I will give you guys an update. I'll be back live on Sunday to recap all the fights that went down and give you guys an update on this as well. My prediction is that tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., we're going to receive news that this fight has come apart and that they're not going to be able to stage it, and then we'll figure out where they go from here, what all happens. So it's time to probably start pivoting. I mentioned this a little bit in the reports. The Xander Zayas versus Josh Kelly fight, that could possibly happen, and the winner would then fight Jaron Boots Ennis, or we see the Charlo fight happen. Those are likely to happen. On a side note, Bill Haney also confirmed that they are talking about possibly making a fight with Xander Zayas as well. So a lot of things could be happening at 154 there. That being said, in regards to Jaron Boots Ennis, I think Charlo would probably make the most sense. I'll give more sort of prediction on where I think Boots Ennis will go after the hearing that we hear tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., which will be on the Sunday show. That being said, it's unfortunate news. This is not good for boxing. At the end of the day, whichever way you want to go about it, and you just look at it from what it is, straight up facts, this is not good for boxing. And this is what I will say. This will be the last thing I'm going to say about this until I talk more about it on Sunday. This entire Jaron Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz situation is very bad for boxing. The reason I say that is you are talking about two guys, as I said, want to make the fight happen. Two guys that are able to make one of the biggest fights in American boxing. And all we're seeing happen is what was a promotional masterclass in terms of them facing off inside the ring, building up the fight to be a mega fight in 2026. Everything went according to plan. It was massively promoted. The hype was there. The build was there. Everything fell into place perfectly. And yet somehow the sport has once again failed to bring a mega fight to the scene. All you can do is fault the promotional companies. And yes, there's a lot of legal problems. I'm not going to ignore that. But at the same time, if you are promoters, your job is to make the best fights happen, and this was going to give every fighter, everybody involved, a massive payday. The fighters wanted it. It made sense. The fans wanted it. And so if you are going to be these guys looking at it from the outside looking in, this is a disaster for boxing. Doing this is unacceptable, and it is another reason why I will say once again, boxing needs more structure. It does. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. Now let's look at behind the scenes though with the broadcast landscape that continues to shift as massive news has now come out over the past 24 hours in regards to Matchroom. Now I just talked about it. DAZN and Golden Boy, they don't have a deal in place right now. They're negotiating. Nothing is in place. Top Rank my golly, who knows what they're doing right now? You're talking about them over here. Haven't had a fight card since June 28th of 2025, and no deal is in sight. That's a problem. You really only have Queensbury locked in with DAZN out there in the UK. You have Matchroom locked in, which I'll talk about momentarily. You have Zufa locked in with Paramount right now, and you have Matchroom in America. There's not a lot of stuff going down right now with promotional companies locked in, and here's why this is a big deal. Matchroom is officially locked in a 5-year extension with DAZN running until 2031 and securing a new 8-show deal with Foxtel in Australia for 2026. Here is the new Matchroom breakdown, which is fascinating. It's going to include 40 fight nights per year. Do you hear that? 40 weeks out of the year, at least Matchroom will be giving us boxing. That means that there's only going to have to be a handful of other weekends a year that other companies need to step up. Zuffa Boxing will do their part with their 12 per year. So pretty much speaking, we should have good, decent boxing on at least once a week moving forward. So this is huge news right here. The breakdown for what is in terms of the contract with Matchroom. 12 US fights, 12 UK fights, 7 in Australia, 6 in Mexico, plus other international markets, including Monaco, Turkey, Belgium, and others. This is massive for boxing. I will say it time and again. Am I the biggest fan of DAZN from a production standpoint, from how it's grown the sport in terms of access and accessibility? No, I'm not. But at least DAZN is doing something for boxing. And at least for Matchroom, they have something in place. How am I going to possibly go out there and blast DAZN Boxing, or how am I possibly going to go out there and blast Matchroom when these guys have actually got the job done? There's no way to go about that. These two have actually given us products. I can't say the same about Top Rank, nor can I say the same about Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy Promotions. So hats off to Eddie Hearn for securing this deal. It is big for the sport of boxing. I want to transition now into other news that came out in regards to exhibitions. Manny Pacquiao will now be facing Ruslan Prokhorov in a 10-round exhibition fight taking place on April 18th in Las Vegas. Wow. Manny Pacquiao is officially returning to the ring for an exhibition fight. You know, I'm a little bit surprised that Manny Pacquiao is returning for this. If we're going to rewind back to July 19th, Manny Pacquiao looked decent. I mean, he should have become world champion against Mario Barrios on July 19th of 2025, making him one of the oldest champions in boxing history. So for him to come back in an exhibition fight is a little bit shocking to myself. I would have expected to see him come back and do a legitimate fight. I thought there was lots of big paydays. But for Manny Pacquiao, he's returning in an exhibition fight. It should be fun. It's going to be at Thomas & Mack Center in Las Vegas. It should be a good showing, good performance. It should be a fun fight to make for him. But listen, if Manny Pacquiao looks decent in that fight, I would not be shocked to see him go out there at 147 once again. And I've been very clear about this many, many times. When we look at guys at 147, that weight class sucks. I mean, let's be honest. It probably is the worst weight class in boxing right now. And Manny Pacquiao should have beaten Mario Barrios. And when you look at other names there, if Manny Pacquiao returns, I know it's not like a hypocrite because I said last year that Manny Pacquiao should not return to boxing, but he did. He looked fine. He got through it. I was wrong. End of discussion. For Manny Pacquiao, if there's an opportunity to fight any of those guys at 147, not named Devin Haney, I think you take it. So we'll see what happens off this exhibition fight. But yes, he's returning. Here's the other one I wanted to discuss. I thought it fizzled away. I said it was announced back in October, November, whenever it was. I thought it kind of fizzled away. But breaking news, Mike Tyson versus Floyd Mayweather is now set for April 25th in the Congo. Let me say this one more time. Mike Tyson, nearing the age of 60, facing Floyd Money Mayweather, who's not quite young either, will be facing each other April 25th in the Congo. The combined age of these two men will be well over 100 years old. Yeah, talk about money grabs. I'm not sure you could come up with a bigger money grab than this. A guy that fought at heavyweight throughout his career, and a man who fought at, well, let's be honest, not heavyweight for a reason. You're talking about a weight difference that I don't even know what it's at in today's world, but either way, you have an age gap, you have a weight gap, a height gap, everything gap. This fight makes absolute no sense outside of the fact that both guys are going to make money. So what I do hope happens here is that neither guy gets hurt. End of the day, I don't want to see Floyd or Mike Tyson get hurt. I don't know why we're making this fight happen. It's I don't know who really wants to watch it. Yes, I will watch it because I watch all boxing, but it's just a cash grab. I don't know why we're doing this. I just hope that both guys make it out okay. I wish both guys would just retire because let's be honest, both guys should have made more than enough money to move on and have a very successful life. I don't know why these guys want to keep going back in the ring and possibly inflicting more damage on themselves. So hopefully they make it out okay. But yes, Mike Tyson will be fighting Floyd Money Mayweather on April 25th in the Congo. Boxing is crazy, y'all. That's all I can say about this. I mean, in all honesty, what other sport has guys nearing 60 years old come out of retirement and fight again? There's nothing like boxing, y'all. It is one heck of a sport to cover. That's all I can say. Before we get out of here tonight, though, we've got some schedules to get into because a lot of fights to get announced in the past week. So I'm just going to rapid fire announce these fights. For the heavyweights, Fabio Wardley will defend his WBO title against Daniel Dubois on May 9th on the DAZN pay-per-view. Mega fight right here. Listen, Fabio Wardley versus Daniel Dubois is a fight that I wanted to see have happen, and now I get to see it happen. When you talk about this fight, mega for the British boxing. You're talking about Fabio Wardley, a guy that has insane knockout power, a guy who has earned his way to becoming world champion, put on an incredible performance against Joseph Parker, and then on the flip side, Daniel Dubois. Listen, I think this man is hated on way too much. End of the day, he didn't beat Alexander Usyk. Whoop-de-woo. Usyk is a guy that's in his prime. He's a guy that is phenomenal, debatably the best boxer in the entire world, the best of this generation, possibly even. He lost to him. So be it. That doesn't mean Daniel Dubois is not a good fighter. We've seen this man take care of business time and again. He knocked out Anthony Joshua in brutal fashion. Does he have his flaws? No doubt about that. But Daniel Dubois, Fabio Wardley, you talk about an all-action, cracking heavyweight fight. This is the one I want to see right here. I love this fight. I'm glad they got the deal locked in. This should be a huge fight for the heavyweight division going down the UK on May 9th. Going to the cruiserweight, it is now official. Jai Opetaia will face Brandon Glanton on March 8th for the Zufa title. All right, I'm going to pause real quickly. I don't have the picture. I didn't think this part through. The Zuffa Boxing belt was leaked. Kind of purposely. I shouldn't say leaked, but it was posted. Not the biggest fan of it. It is what it is. It was kind of dull if you ask me, but whatever. But yes, we have another belt in boxing. It is what it is. Yep, I'm not a big fan of that, but whatever. The Zufa title belt will be on the line in this fight, and Jai Opetaia versus Brandon Glanton, which I'll be honest, it is a solid fight. Not that Jai Opetaia is going to lose. Jai will win the fight probably by knockout. But listen, for Zuffa Boxing to have their fourth main card be headlined by a guy like Jai Opetaia and Brandon Glanton, that is quite successful. And you look at it, and I get they have great funding behind them. There's not a lot of promotional companies that's able to put together a fight like Jai Opetaia and Brandon Glanton and just their fourth overall fight card. So big props to them on that aspect. It should be a fun fight. That's going to be for the Zufa title on March 8th. Then, super middleweights. Let's go down to 168. Armando Resendiz versus Jaime Munguia is off. Resendiz will now reportedly defend his title against possibly either Jamal Charlo on May 2nd. Now, there's other people in the running, but it appears Charlo has the upper hand. Not officials, don't quote me on this. It's just what seems to be leaked as the favorite for this fight. I want to stop real quickly there. If you are Jaime Munguia, why did you not take that fight? Listen, Armando Resendiz, upset of the year last year. He did his job. Hats off to this man. What he did last year, phenomenal. But I'm not going to act like this man's an elite fighter yet. He beat Caleb Plant. Incredible. Hats off to you. But I feel like when you look at a guy like Armando Resendiz, a lot of guys at 168 should probably have the mindset of saying, you know what, I could probably beat this guy and become world champion. And so if you're Jaime Munguia, let's reflect on the past 18 months. You have one of the worst knockouts of the year, and you get upset brutally. Then you go forward, you get your revenge, you get a get back, and you win that fight. You then go through a whole PED scandal. Obviously, some say still did it, some say didn't. He's been cleared. So that's what we're going to go with and run with. He was cleared from that. And now you've been inactive ever since that standpoint. And even going back to the revenge fight you had, it wasn't the best performance in the world. He won the fight. I'm not saying that, but it was not a beautiful fight by Jaime Munguia. And so now if you're Munguia, you have a chance to fight for a world championship against Resendiz, who I would favor Munguia quite easily in this fight, but he turns it down. Now, I know there's a lot of openings at 168, so we'll see where he ends up going with this, but I'm a little bit baffled. I thought if you were Jaime Munguia, you were probably going to go out there and take on the Resendez fight. It made perfect sense. It kind of fell right into your lap. He turns it down, and now a guy like Charlo could step up and become world champion, which for Charlo, it'd be funny because remember, he was going to go out there and fight Caleb Plant, and Caleb Plant blew it, and now that means that he could possibly go take on Resendez instead. Funny story, funny how boxing works, but just going to throw those thoughts out there. Then, Fundora versus Keith Thurman. That undercard has now been officialized. Frank Sanchez, Richard Torres Jr. is the co-main event. Now, let me be very clear real quickly. Actually, I'll say this afterwards. Frank Sanchez, Richard Torres Jr., co-main event. I'll go back to this. Hats off to Richard Torres Jr. for taking this fight. I have said this from the beginning. F.A. Ajagba, Martin Bakoli, and every other, Jaron Anderson, and every other heavyweight fighter that was ranked in position to go fight for a title eliminator against Frank Sanchez and turn it down, shame on you. The only one I'll give the excuse to is Daniel Dubois, who was going to take that fight until he got a world championship fight against Bobby Warley lined up. So he's excused. For every other guy, you lost the opportunity to go fight for a title eliminator. That looks bad on your part. Torres Jr., he decided to go take that fight. Hats off. This should be a cracking fight right here. Then, Yolani Hernandez is going to fight Terrell Gashua, and this fight is fine. Hernandez is going to win this fight. Massive favorite. But unfortunately, Jaleel Tucker, who he has been in the show before, I think he's a solid fighter. I don't know why he turned it down, but he was signed to fight this fight. He turns the fight down last second. They bring in Gashua. That's the new fight we're going to have. So I think Hernandez should win this fight easily. Then Elijah Garcia, he's returning as well against Kevin Newman. Solid card. Not going to make a lot of complaints here. Like, I do like this fight card. I'll be enjoying that night. However, it is a pay-per-view. I don't know about you, but do you want to go out there and spend a lot of money on a card to watch Sebastian Fundora versus Keith Thurman, which I'm not a big fan of. I know some people are. And then see Frank Sanchez, who many guys don't know at heavyweight, unless you're truly a boxing diehard fan, fight with Torres Jr., Yolani Hernandez, Gashua, and Elijah Garcia versus Kevin Newman. That's not a pay-per-view card. And so I'll turn back the clock again. Why is PBC always doing these garbage pay-per-views? I don't know, but it is what it is. Let's go to a massive fight that was announced about a week ago, but I did not cover it in my last show, and that is that Errol Spence Jr. returns this summer against Tszyu. All right. For a long time, we were wondering, are we ever going to see Errol Spence back in the ring? Errol Spence Jr. returning to boxing is huge for the sport. Now, I don't know if Errol Spence Jr. is going to look great. I don't know what version of Errol Spence Jr. we're going to see. But what I do know is that boxing is better when Errol Spence Jr. is involved. And you talk about all the possible fights for this man to return in, this is the perfect fight. If you're talking about Errol Spence Jr., there were some crazy fights that were being thrown out there for the man to go out there and fight. None of which really were intriguing to myself. But this one makes sense. Errol Spence, Tszyu. Tszyu is a guy who has been beaten down multiple times. He is, on life support in a certain sense. Yes, he had a good performance a little bit ago, got the win, yada, yada, yada. But obviously, he's still recovering and trying to work his way back up. For Errol Spence, this is the type of fight that you can look at and say, you know what? I can comfortably go in there and know that if I can shake off the rust, that I have a chance at winning this fight. And so let's just be honest about this. If you are an Errol Spence fan and you like boxing, this is good for boxing. Errol Spence returning to the ring is great for the sport. We have to remember this. Was Errol Spence Jr. not one of the biggest names in boxing for a very long time? Absolutely. Yes, he got beat down by Terrence Bud Crawford. Bud Crawford is one of the greatest fighters that has ever lived. There's no shame in getting beat down by Terrence Bud Crawford, especially now that we know what we know. If you are Errol Spence, this man is still one of the best fighters of his generation. What he did for the sport of boxing was remarkable. And I think him returning back to the ring, hopefully healthy, hopefully able to compete and be healthy and safe, this is great for the sport of boxing. And I truly do look forward to the time that we're going to see him back in the ring against Tszyu. And as for Tszyu, a great fight for him as well. For Tszyu, you're talking about building yourself back up. And I've said time and again, he needs to properly build himself back up because he didn't do it right. His team failed him time and again. You talk about doing a tune-up fight. He already announced he's going to do another tune-up fight before the Errol Spence fight, and then you go for Errol Spence. That is the perfect game plan for this man. Why? because you have 2 tune-up fights, and then you fight a man, which is going to be a big payday for yourself out there in Australia. And on top of that, it's against a guy who's not been in the ring for a long time. The last time he was in the ring, he got beat down real badly, and we don't know where he's at from a health standpoint. So if you are Tszyu, you're looking at the situation saying, you know what? I'm building myself up properly. I now get a big payday and possibly a big name on my resume. That is huge for Tszyu. Absolutely massive. So Tszyu, Errol Spence, I love it. I think I'm all in on this fight. This is the perfect fight to make for both guys. Jack Catterall versus Jose Ramirez is being targeted for May 30th in Fresno, California. Another fight that I love right here. Catterall was in position to possibly fight for a world championship. He turns it down. Remember, he's being trained by Boots Ennis now. But turn it down. The prices were not right. And now we move into a position where he's going to go fight Jose Ramirez. Should be an easy win for Jack Catterall, but I still like the fight a lot. Then Lewis Crocker, Liam Paro, set for March 5th. This is also a good fight right here. Lewis Crocker, Liam Paro for a world championship going down in Australia. Lewis Crocker will probably lose this fight. I've been honest about this before. Lewis Crocker has one of the most remarkable journeys to ever becoming world champion. This is a man who's won maybe 3 or 4 rounds in his entire past 2 fights with Paddy Donovan, and yet he's world champion. Only something like that can happen in boxing. He should not have won that first fight, but obviously he did because, well, Paddy got disqualified. The second fight, he had a couple great knockdowns, was incredible in those fights. I mean, he looked good in those rounds, but he didn't win that fight. I don't know how the scorecards gave it to him, but he won it. So Lewis Crocker's a world champion. He fights Liam Paro. I think it's a fun fight to watch go down in Australia. So lots of to get into, but with that being said, that wraps up for a massive week that has been going down since I was last live. Let me know in the comments, though, do you have Ryan Garcia walking out of Vegas as a world champion, or do you think that Mario Barrios retains it? And what do you think will end up coming from the results of the judge and the ruling tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. between Vergil Ortiz and Jaron Boots Ennis case? Drop your thoughts below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm your host, Zach Schumaker. I will see you guys back live on Sunday. Enjoy the fights going to go down this weekend, and I'll see you guys back live on Sunday. May God bless you guys all, and I'll see you guys shortly. God bless y'all. Shoot us out. That's the final bell for today. If you enjoyed the show, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next round. Sound off in the comments. I want to hear your take. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review. Share this with your crew, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.